3 new MRT stations will link the downtown line from Bukit Panjang station to the north-south line at Sungei Kadut. Construction will start at the end of the year, and when completed, it will be completed by 2035. It will give commuters in the northwest region alternative travel and transfer options. As Claudia Lim reports, it will also cut travelling time.
UT Village residents will typically take about 1 hour to travel to the city. But with a proposed new MRT station that's a stone's throw away, commuters will cut down travel time by some 20 minutes.
They have to use the bus or the LRT to transfer, right? And then we understand the capacity and the reliability for the buses and for the LRT actually is not that good or not as good as the MRT. So when we try to introduce the MRT systems, it means that it's much more reliable.
The station near UT Village is one of 3 stations planned under the downtown line expansion. Another 2 stations will be constructed at Sungei Kadut, which will form an interchange that will serve 2 lines. The overhead station will connect to the north-south line, while the other underground facility will be part of the downtown line. One observer says it not only aligns with Singapore's broader land transport master plan, but also urban development plans.
It actually serves the broader purpose of really activating the northern economic corridor of Singapore. It will provide a kind of better access to the northern corridor, whereas the downtown line expansion provides a kind of northern to central kind of connectivity, and this will greatly benefit the factories or even companies that want to set up their businesses in Sungei Kadut Eco District.
Mr. Chua says there is also an opportunity to create new spaces like pedestrian corridors and public areas to improve last-mile transportation. In a Facebook post, Transport Minister Chee Hong Tat shared plans for the area and says his ministry will continue improving Singapore's public transport to ensure better connectivity for all commuters.
So, to minimise the environmental impact of the new train station's construction, the Land Transport Authority says it will implement a monitoring and management plan along with mitigation measures. Nature groups have been engaged and consulted. Claudia Lim again with more.
The rail corridor is home to some of Singapore's rich native flora and fauna. It is also a crucial ecological pathway. With upcoming developments along the downtown line, the corridor will see some changes. The upcoming MRT station near UT Village will just be situated across the canal adjacent to the existing rail corridor. To minimise disruption to local wildlife habitats and support the safe movement of fauna during the construction phase, a dedicated wildlife corridor will be built. The move is just one of many mitigation measures that the Land Transport Authority is taking to minimise the environmental impact. Others include plans to control noise, air pollution or erosion. An environmental study on the MRT expansion was also published after nature groups were engaged and consulted. Some also brought up potential risks to the nearby river, Sungai Pangsua.
We see it as a future potential nature corridor where it runs from south from Sungei Kadut all the way north to the Johor Strait. And it potentially connects to Kranji and all the way to Sungai Buloh. And, you know, that waterway is a brackish water. So I think there'll be a lot of bird life that'll be attracted to it, not mentioning the crocodiles as well.
The report also laid out moves that LTA will take, including having work sites located away from the river.
So let's get more on this with our transport analyst, Dr. Terence Fan. He is the Assistant Professor of Strategic Management at the Singapore Management University. Dr. Fan, welcome back to you. Now, this downtown line, the extension and the link to the north-south line, what does it mean for consumers, commuters rather?
Well, it means easier connections because if you look on the map, this will represent a northerly extension of the downtown line that will meet the north-south line at the new station. So if you include that as one sort of a northerly connection, if you move south towards the CBD in Newton, the two lines will meet again. So if there's any interruption or anything, you can kind of have a loop, commuters can sort of have an alternate way of getting to where they want to go in that loop. So definitely it will help. Also, it will help people from the downtown line going northwards, because right now, if they want to go north of Bukit Panjang, they have to take the LRT before they can get to the north-south line. So, and the LRT is not built for that kind of volume, if you want to think about that. So it's a little bit of a bottleneck, if you want to speak of that. So that will also smoothen the northerly traffic, which may increase with the RTS completion, with the Johor side of transport later on. So that will also help that kind of traffic flow as well.
So it's forward-looking, it releases bottlenecks and provides options when things maybe go wrong. So aside from all that, how can it improve rail resilience as well as our rail reliability in Singapore, which is a question?
Well, as I just mentioned, it creates sort of multiple connecting points with these two major lines in the western part of Singapore. So if something happens along one of these lines, and we had some sort of incidents in the past year, for example, so that will help people sort of take an alternate route a little bit more easily, in addition to the buses that will be there.
Well, you did mention the event at the end of last year in December. In fact, that was the worst train disruption in Singapore in 37 years. And all the hit stations were in the west of Singapore. Talk to me a bit about that. And can this new DTL stations, as you mentioned, alleviate and go quite a long way to solving such problems in the future?
Well, it won't completely eliminate such occurrences or probabilities. And I think it's by chance somehow that these things happen in the West, because we somehow had a little bit more some of the older stations, some of the older lines there, because if you think about the loop and so on, there's all on the west side.
So it's not a surprise, because they tend,
statistically,
wear and tear, right?
Yeah, wear and tear. But I mean, it doesn't preclude the possibility that in the east, it may happen, but it's just a little bit higher probability, and that's what panned out to be the case. So it certainly adds some additional paths, and it helps commuters, if these things happen again, they have more choices in addition to the buses that will be on hand.
I mean, many people are looking at it as the key to unlocking Sungei Kadut and its potential, especially economically. I mean, we saw pictures earlier. It was just a green space, lovely green space, but with a lot of old factories and abandoned factories. What do you see happening there?
Well, in fact, if you've been taking the north-south line towards that path, the rail line has always crossed that path. It's just that there wasn't a station there. So for people who work there, for people who want to visit there to get their furniture and so on, for example, it's a bit of a way, because they have to get off at Choa Chu Kang, or maybe they go off at Kranji, and then they have to make a way there. So having that station will certainly revitalize that area and perhaps gear that area up for future growth. It could be kind of an intensification of the existing industries. For example, we've seen in the cars, where a lot of the garages now, they're not on the ground. They're like housed in taller buildings. So maybe we can see some of that in the Sungei Kadut area. We can also see an expansion of the residential estates in Choa Chu Kang northwards, for example. So those are just two of the many possibilities there.
That people can consider. And we also, before coming to you, had a story on the environmental impact, or potential environmental impact. It is important, isn't it, to consider the environment when making such a rail expansion plan?
Yeah, definitely. I think in that area in particular, it's quite green, if you want to look at the satellite map. Just to the west, we have the Mandai Road, and then that leads right to the zoo, the bird paradise, and so on. So that's really the heart of our wilderness. And then just to the west of that, we actually have the Kranji Reservoir that links up to the causeway and so on. So right now, those are abandoned factories, but they were there for purpose in the sense that it's a connection between the Mandai kind of reserve area and the Kranji waterways that flows out. So it's important to sort of have some passageways for our animals and so on to not be so isolated after this area get built up.
Always hard, but I hope that balance is achieved. I hope that sweet spot is maintained. Thank you so much. We've been speaking there with Dr. Terence Fan from the Singapore Management University.